Welcome to Speak for Yourself. I'm Joy Taylor here with LeVar Arrington and Rick Bucher. Marcellus Wiley and Emmanuel Acho are off today, but we're getting it started in New Orleans. Sponsored by the Popeyes Chicken Sandwich. Jameis Winston was nearly perfect last night, missing just one completion and finishing with 2 touchdown passes. Winston appeared to boost his chances in the QB battle with Taysom Hill, but after the game, Sean Payton said he still does not have a time frame on when he is announcing his Week 1 starter. So, LeVar, has Jameis Winston earned the Saints' starting job?
Earned the starting job. I would say he has proven that he should be in the conversation for the starting job. You think about the Jameis Winston situation and how it came about. You lose Teddy Bridgewater, right? You brought Teddy Bridgewater in to be the heir apparent to Drew Brees when he left, and that became evident when Drew Brees got injured, and they brought Teddy Bridgewater into the game as the starter for the amount of time that he was gone. I think that they let and allowed Teddy Bridgewater to go for the simple fact that they were able to get a hold of Jameis Winston, and I think that they had that same thought process in mind when they brought Jameis to the New Orleans Saints. So giving him this opportunity to prove that he should be in the conversation of being a starter, I think he has done that. I think he has performed well. He's protected the ball. He's shown what is seemingly enough growth in these first 2 preseason games. But I don't give credence that this is enough of a sample size to say that today you go along and go ahead and as Sean Payton and say, here is our starting quarterback. We'll go from here. So as of right now, he's done enough to be the starter. I don't think he's done anything to take himself out of the conversation. But I will say this, it's probably wise and prudent for Coach Sean Payton to continue down the lane that he's gone thus far in terms of how he's handling, putting out the information of if Jameis is the starter or not.
If we're going based on just last night's game, there's no question that Jameis Winston proved that he's the starter between him and Taysom Hill. And I was blown away. Not, again, automatic disclaimer, we're all going to have it. It's only preseason. Can't make too much of whatever is being done. But it wasn't so much that he threw a number of gorgeous balls and a couple of touchdown passes to Marquez Callaway, but it was really the demeanor of Jameis Winston that looked so starkly different from anything that I saw in Tampa Bay or even in Florida State. It was the poise and the emotional maturity that I saw. After the touchdown against Callaway, just a gorgeous throw, gorgeous catch. He comes down, gives him a little tap on the helmet, off he goes. A 3 and out is going back to the sideline. Sean Payton calls him over. He's looking him in the eye, listening, moves on. Like, those things sound really simple. Those are things that I didn't see from Jameis Winston before. And so they give me all the confidence in the world when I combine that with the talent that he has. Because the reality is, when I look at some of the plays, again, disclaimer, preseason, the plays that he made, the throws that he made last night, I've never seen Taysom Hill make, in preseason or otherwise. And so when I put the whole package together, I look at what Sean Payton said. He didn't say, I don't know who my starter is. He said, I don't know what the time frame is for me to tell you who my starter is. I dare say at this point, comparing these two, he knows who the starting quarterback should be, and that is Jameis Winston.
I think that he's always known who the starting quarterback was, but it was closer than it has been in other quarterback battles around the league. So he had to put Jameis Winston through this process. But Jameis Winston is the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. Not because Taysom Hill isn't talented, not because he doesn't have the ability to make plays. It's because Jameis Winston has 70 career starts compared to Taysom Hill's 4. Now, Jameis Winston was the #1 overall pick. We know what his struggles have been. He is not an efficient quarterback. He has high-level production, and high-level turnovers. And in an efficient league that we are in right now, that gunslinger thing only works for so long. Because if you start turning the ball over as much as Jameis has, that translates to points for the other team, and they tend to keep track of that these days. So he's in a position now where he's not in a let-it-fly offense. He's with Sean Payton, who has had Drew Brees for a very long time. They have a certain way of doing things. They have a culture. They know how to win. And he's been in that system. Now, I understand they're paying Taysom Hill a lot more, which in a lot of cases can sometimes sway people to kind of justify that check. Taysom is making $12.1 million to Jameis's $5.5. But I also trust that Sean Payton is going to make the best decision for his team and not necessarily worry about who's getting paid what. Jameis Winston has a lot of experience as a starting every down quarterback. That doesn't mean that Taysom is not going to contribute mightily to this offense this year, similar to what he did with Drew Brees. But if we're talking about who's going to be the starting quarterback week one, I believe that Jameis Winston has earned that position, but I also believe he has the most experience and gives them the best chance to win right now in what is a very weird year for the Saints. The Saints are coming off of the departure of Drew Brees, the soul of the team, the soul of that city, the leader of that organization, and they need to move forward without Michael Thomas. It's a very weird year for the Saints as is, and I think that Jameis can step in as a starting quarterback with the experience that he has in that position, the most seamless for the Saints, and that's why I think he's earned it.
I'm going to continue to double down on my original theme, which is they did not bring Jameis in to beat out Taysom Hill. They brought Jameis Winston in to replace Drew Brees. Now, with that being said, he sat behind Drew Brees for an entire season. This is what Jameis Winston brought to the table with a league minimum deal. Second most passing yards in NFL history in his first 5 seasons. 19,000 yards, 737 yards. That's a whole bunch of yards. Led the NFL in passing yards, if y'all remember, in 2019. Yeah, he turned the ball over, but he led the league in passing yards. Buccaneers had a top 10 total offense in yards in 4 or 5 seasons with Winston starting. These are things that we're talking about Sean Payton saw firsthand. He saw these things firsthand because they're in the same division. So when you think about what Sean Payton was feeling he was getting when he got Jameis Winston, you mentioned emotional maturity. The emotional maturity was probably the one piece, the one ingredient that Jameis Winston was missing when he came to this New Orleans Saints team. And that's probably the only reason why he didn't command top dollar as a free agent talent. So when I look at the whole entirety of this situation, Taysom Hill wasn't paid to be the starter when he got that big contract. Taysom Hill was paid to be Taysom Hill for what he represents to the New Orleans Saints, which is a utility man. They expect him to be the same guy that he's been since he's been with the New Orleans Saints, which is a guy that comes in situationally as a quarterback, can play different positions, can even possibly at the times, if you need so, play special teams for this team. He will continue to be that utility guy for this New Orleans Saints team. And due to his compensation, I don't think Taysom Hill will have any problem considering that his role is solidified the way that it is with this roster and with this team.
LeVar, I'm with all of that. I just don't know that Sean Payton knew that Jameis Winston could have the growth emotionally.
No, he didn't.
To Joy's point, in decision-making,
yeah, I agree
to
with
be
you.
that starting quarterback.
Agreed.
Right?
Yes, agreed.
So Taysom Hill, I believe, was a little bit more than we're going to pay you to be a utility guy. You're always going to be a utility guy. I think he was a safety blanket. I think it was, if the Jameis Winston experiment does not work, then we do have a guy that we can put out there as our starting quarterback.
Yes.
And I do believe there are going to be times where Taysom Hill is still going to play, that Sean Payton at times is going to mix and match. But if I'm going to start one or the other, I can't go to Jameis Winston off of the bench. I can't reverse those roles. Jameis has to be my guy. And again, it's not just the emotional maturity kind of covers everything because it does affect the decision-making on the field. And he was that gunslinger. He was always trying to make the huge play, even when the huge play wasn't there to be made. And I still can't get over, like, I remember the guy who ate his fingers. I don't know what that winning thing was, but
yes, exactly.
And He was a cross between a TV evangelist and a stand-up comedian half the time when he was in Tampa Bay. And now I see this reserved, watching everything, taking everything in, the composure. And I honestly, I love to see it because he just needed time to grow up, right? He just needed that opportunity to let his personal maturity catch up with his physical abilities. And now we're seeing it, and I think there's great promise there. There was one play where he was looking downfield and he just checked down, and I went, that's unbelievable. That is huge growth for Jameis Winston, and I'm glad to see it.
Rick, we all tried to put that image of the dub eating behind us, so thank you for reminding us that happened.
Sorry.
I tried to remove that from my memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I agree. We're seeing a different Jameis. Jameis also had LASIK surgery done. He's also clearly in a little bit better shape. Not that I really felt like that played a role in his success or not. He obviously was able to move around and throw the ball regardless. But he does look different, and he has a different demeanor about him. And he's talked about what being around Drew Brees and Sean Payton and what the Saints offered him was a quarterback education, like a quarterback college, basically, working with the two of them. So I do think he's changed a lot. And sometimes the best thing for a player can be to go to a different organization and culture. We know where you land specifically if you're a quarterback really matters. And he's now in a situation where they run a different type of offense. They've had success, so they know what works and they can prove it. And when you go to a culture and a situation where the person that's guiding you, the person that's giving you that advice has doing things a particular way at a high level, is a Hall of Famer and is showing you how to do things, sometimes that permeates a little bit and changes how you approach things. So, again, I think he's earned it. I think he's showing that he has the capability of running the offense. And I personally, if I'm Sean Payton, am leaning on someone who has shown that they are a starting quarterback in the league despite his mistakes, because I believe that I can limit those mistakes by changing how he approaches and changing our game plan and how we run our offense.
Again, his talent has never been in question. His stat line speaks for itself. His accomplishments speak for themselves. I mean, coming out of college, we know what it is. The draft, we know what it is. His stat line in the league, we know what it is. It's that emotional maturity, as we mentioned, and I think that that's going to go a long way for Jameis. Sometimes being that number one pick at the team that you're on can create a false sense of security and maybe a false sense of having a lot of real, bravado connected to what it is that you have going on. And he had to take a couple steps back. And sometimes in life, you got to take a couple steps back before you take a couple steps forward. Shouts out to Jameis. I don't know if he's going to start, but it looks like he's heading for it. So, anyways, let's stay with the QBs, QB battles. Kyle Shanahan, he's not named his starter yet either. But we'll tell you if we like how he's handling the 49ers situation. Next on Speak for Yourself.
We're inching closer to the regular season, and Kyle Shanahan is not named the 49ers Week 1 starter. Shanahan said Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance both give the team the chance to win, but added, quote, "There's not much advantage in us making an announcement." So, Rick, do you like how Kyle Shanahan is handling the quarterback situation?
Like is a strong word. I can't say that I like it. I don't have a problem with it, and I understand it because, while I'm sort of numb at this point to the games that coaches in general and football coaches, NFL coaches in particular, the games that they play as far as hiding who's going to start and who's going to play, et cetera, the fact of the matter is he does have two quarterbacks that are markedly different, and he would be giving a competitive advantage to their first opponent. I believe it's Green Bay coming out of the gate, if he were indeed to give away who they're playing in their first game. So I understand why he's doing it. When he goes and says, yeah, we have three quarterbacks, and he's including Nate Sudfeld in the group, now you're taking it a little bit too far. I will say this, though. I get the absolute sense that Kyle Shanahan is doing everything possible to make Trey Lance the starting quarterback of this team as soon as possible. And if he is going to utilize both of them, which he has hinted that he's going to, it doesn't really work unless you're starting Jimmy Garoppolo and then going to Trey Lance. You always go to the X factor, the dynamic quarterback coming off the bench, the wild card coming off the bench, Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick as an example. So it's either Jimmy Garoppolo starts and Trey Lance is seeing that spot duty. But if Trey Lance ends up being the starter, and I think that's ultimately what Kyle Shanahan is looking for, then indeed we're not going to see a whole lot of Jimmy Garoppolo. I just can't imagine that. But his playing games, I would imagine, in part, is because at this point, he genuinely doesn't know. He doesn't know when Trey Lance is going to be ready to take over that job full time. So at this point, he's still hedging his bet that I may have to go both ways and Jimmy Garoppolo may get the nod.
Good old Nate Sudfeld, huh? Sudfeld. Listen, he can play. And in fact, he's partially part of the reason why Doug Peterson doesn't have a head coaching job right now is because, well, Doug Peterson wanted to see him play and see him play well, and that he did not do. But nonetheless, everybody that spoke on him spoke very highly of him. I not only think that this is a great decision as the way Coach Shanahan is handling this. I love the way that he's handling this. We continue to have the conversation. This is an amazing year for football in the National Football League because it is truly focused in on where everyone would want the focus to be, which is where? On the quarterback's position. I can't recall a year coming into the season where there has been this much coverage focused in on guys that are proven, guys that are unproven, quarterback battles, quarterback controversies. There's so many things that are going on. But when you sift through all of it, when you peel it back, when you cut through the fat of all of it, there's this idea of the value of every single quarterback that is on a football roster at this point in time, which I think is amazing for the game. It's amazing for the best reality TV show going. But it's also great for guys like Kyle Shanahan, who has value in keeping the value high of not only his starter or projected starter, not only the projected possible backup, but even the backup to the backup. There is value in having a quarterback that can go to another team and either be a starter in the midst of an injury adverse situation for a team or to be a backup. We just got done talking about Jameis Winston. He went from being a starter in this league to being a backup for an entire season. So we look at that value and the way that Shanahan is handling the media and handling this situation, he can't lose, really. If you start Trey Lance right out the gate, you may take the trade value of Jimmy Garoppolo down tremendously, but you still don't lose because the upside of it is if you've made that decision, chances are you believe that Trey Lance is going to be the guy and can handle that duty from day one. So you're not really looking at the collateral damage of Jimmy Garoppolo not being that guy. If you keep Jimmy Garoppolo in as that starter, now you're keeping Trey Lance in a position where, A, he's hungry to try to get that starting position, but B, while he's trying to get that starting position, he's getting to learn while not having the pressure of being the starter for a team that's expected to win and contend. That's a big shoe to step into, especially when that shoe belongs to the starter that is perceivably the starter right now. So looking at the scenario, Jimmy Garoppolo will all throw out the injury-prone situation and why he can't be the guy for the throws that he may miss. But I think that this is very wise and very prudent of Shanahan to handle it this way because it ultimately sets him up to be able to create a winning situation for all of the quarterbacks that he has on his roster right now.
No, I don't think that I don't like the way that Shanahan is handling it, but I don't even want to get into that because I want to address what LeVar just said. So you're saying this is a good thing that there are all these quarterback battles around the NFL, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I could not disagree more. If my team has a quarterback battle, it's not going to be a good season for us. That's what I know. Because what I do know is we don't know who the guy is. So let's look at the teams. You mentioned the Saints that we just talked about having a quarterback battle. You feel like they have a good chance to make the playoffs or win their division this year?
A good chance to win the playoffs.
I don't think they do.
Playoffs.
I don't think they do. They're definitely not winning the division. That's not happening. So maybe
maybe
they can make the playoffs. They're definitely not winning the division. The Patriots, not winning the division. Cam Newton and Mac Jones, not winning the division. Maybe they can make the playoffs. Still a maybe. Jacksonville, not making the playoffs, not winning their division. Bears, maybe they can make the playoffs.
Maybe
not winning the division. Eagles, last in the division. And here we are with the Niners. So what you're telling me is that a quarterback controversy, a quarterback competition in camp is going to lead to it's not going to lead to winning a division because none of those teams you feel good about winning the division except for, which one did you say?
The 49ers.
The 49ers was the one we're talking about.
Win. I wouldn't count out the New Orleans Saints.
At some point, to me, if you're not going to name who the starter is, when does it become more of a controversy within the locker room or a problem in the locker room? We don't know who the guy is versus an advantage over your week one opponent. We know Aaron Rodgers is the starter week one in Green Bay. So you prepare for Aaron Rodgers. How much of a competitive advantage are you getting by not saying Jimmy Garoppolo is the starter week one? At what point does it become a problem in the locker room? Because to me, I'm starting to think maybe Jimmy Garoppolo isn't capable of starting week one because Trey Lance is the future of the organization. We know that. And we know that he's going to play this year. He's already said that, Kyle Shanahan has. We know he's going to have plays designed for him and they're going to put him into different scenarios. So at what point does it become, I'm asking you, LeVar, because you've been in locker rooms, and I like to ask people who have experience in certain fields, you've been there. At what point are you in the locker room like, we still don't know who the guy is? When does that become a problem?
That's a kind of a complex question to answer because when you're a pro, you have to handle things as a professional. I mean, I was not a part of quarterback competitions. I was a part of quarterback controversies. My rookie year, right out the gate, before you even know what it's about being a pro and what that represents, I'm dealing with Brad Johnson as the starting quarterback, and they bring in Jeff George in free agency. So I can tell you a little bit about what free agent acquisitions or draft picks, what that looks like when they brought in Patrick Ramsey and they were trying to figure things out when Marty Schottenheimer came in. There are a lot of ways that vets and pros internalize position battles. I would say this. We all knew that if you don't have a quarterback that is good enough to lead the team, you don't have a real legitimate opportunity to win.
But that's what I'm saying. So how far into, at this point in camp, when does it become detrimental to the team that you don't know who the guy is versus getting a little bit of a competitive edge in week one by not allowing your first week opponent to prepare for one quarterback?
I think where you're coming from is a legit perspective, and I respect that. I think as it applies to the first part of what you said in terms of how good will these teams be? Sure, the San Francisco 49ers are the one team that has had the opportunity to pick high and get a legitimate draft pick, being a good team,
right.
a contending team.
Yes.
But when you have a big name like Trevor Lawrence and in a weak market like Jacksonville, and he's competing against Gardner Minshew for the starting job, sometimes those storylines are the only storylines that truly matter. To be honest, I don't know if they're even looking at them to be able to win games or to make it to the playoffs or to win in the Super Bowl. The idea of the storylines and why this is such a great time and great opportunity is because you're looking at the development of what could be your next group, your next level franchise quarterbacks that are coming into the league. So you're not going to have the New York Jets being a super competitive team. You probably aren't going to have the Jacksonville Jaguars being a super competitive team. Now, when I look at the New Orleans Saints, I think they're constructed well enough to possibly overcome some of the things that have taken place this past offseason. Whether it happens or not with Drew Brees not being there, some of the injuries or suspensions that have taken place with their roster, I still have seen Sean Payton overcome a whole lot to be able to keep this team winning. So I'm not going to write off the New Orleans Saints. And I believe this. If a coach is holding off on naming who he believes the starting quarterback is, it's generally because in a lot of ways we talk about the ability to be able to prepare for the guy and what that's going to look like going into the game week. But I also think that there's something to be said. Once you declare who your starter is going to be, you're going to go with who that starter is. And sometimes it's very difficult to backtrack, whether it be with the media, but more importantly, with your team. You don't want your team sitting there, I'm calling starter this week, but I didn't like the way that he played this week, so I'm going to change up and I'm going to go to this guy and I'm going to make him a starter that week. I think that whoever ends up being named the starter by week one, going into that week one game, I think that is a person that you're going to go with and you're going to attach your cart, so to speak, your wagon, to see if you can have success with that guy. And you have to give them somewhat of a significant amount of time to be able to prove that you made the right decision, because making this decision is just as much on you, sometimes on the GM, as it is on the player that's going out there to represent you as your starting quarterback.
Well, this has devolved into the value of QB battles, and I would say that not all of them are created equal, or that having a definitive starting quarterback is necessarily a sign that you're in a good place. Zach Wilson in New York, Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. Do we have competition in those situations? Supposedly not. I look at the 49ers situation with Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think it's an embarrassment of riches. They're going to be good either way. It's just a matter of how quickly Trey Lance comes along. But if Trey Lance doesn't, I would have to think, and I think you agree with this, Joy, that they'd be in perfectly good shape if Jimmy Garoppolo, if healthy, ends up being the quarterback there. So ultimately, I look at the way Kyle Shanahan is playing this, and I think it comes back to this. So the fact that he's played Trey Lance as much as he had, and the first signal for me was in the first exhibition when he brought him back for a series in the second half. Like, the plan was not that, but he clearly wanted to give him a little more rope, to give him a little more time. He's trying, knowing that he only played one game last year at North Dakota State, he's trying to give him as much as he can to see how quickly he can evolve. But that's a moving target. And so the fact that he's playing this, I would normally look at it as coy. I believe it's genuine. Like, he doesn't really know who his starting quarterback for week one is going to be at this point.
You know, just to add to Joy's point, I mentioned the 2000 Washington football team. Brad Johnson was the quarterback of a playoff contending team the year before in 99. They brought Jeff George in 2000, and we did fail to make it to the playoffs, by the way. That team had Darrell Green, Deion Sanders, Champ Bailey, Marco Coleman, Kennard Lang, Irvin Fryer, Stephen Davis, Skip Hicks. Do you want me to keep going? John Jansen.
You got to have the guy. You got to have
Chris
the guy.
Samuels.
I agree with you, Rick, that the Niners are in a very, and LeVar said this too, they are in the most unique situation as far as these quarterback battles go. And each of these teams, I think, are very different and have different situations within their own quarterback competition. But my overreaching point is, if you aren't going into the season knowing who your guy is, you got some questions at that position, even if you do have a rookie who you know is going to be the future of the organization. It is an embarrassment of riches because you are going to be able to use Trey Lance in some unique situations, and Jimmy Garoppolo has played in the Super Bowl. So it's the best quarterback competition situation out of all of these teams, but you still are undecided on who the guy is. And to me, that leaves the Niners with some serious question marks going into what's nearing the end of the preseason. Coming up, Andy Reid says preseason games are good for Patrick Mahomes. We'll tell you if we agree. Next on Speak for Yourself. Patrick Mahomes is not resting before the regular season. He played over 30 snaps in Friday's preseason game. And Andy Reid says the work is good for his quarterback. He added, quote, "I also think it's good for the offensive line and Pat to see how that's going to work and get a feel for them." So, Rick, you agree with Andy Reid that it's good for Patrick Mahomes to play in the preseason?
Hell yes, I agree with Andy Reid. I agree with Andy Reid. I agree with Patrick Mahomes. Let's see. For 3 years, these guys have been working together, and we've got 2 Super Bowl appearances. We've got 1 Lombardi. We've got 1 league MVP. We've got 1 Super Bowl MVP. What is not to like about what they're doing? Let's put aside the whole debate kind of brought up in yesterday's show about how much guys need to play or should play, or is there a necessity to playing. I look at what Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes have created, and I just simply say, continue doing whatever you have been doing because it works. And I do believe that in the big picture, that one size does not fit all. And that if Andy Reid feels this is best for the Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes is in agreement, this is what's best for the Chiefs and for me, in spite of coming back from a surgery, then by all means, do it and keep doing it. It's really as simple as that. It may not fit for everybody, but based on what the Chiefs have done, I feel as if Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes know exactly what they're doing, not only individually, but collectively, and what's best for the both of them.
I loved how you referenced the show yesterday, Mr. Bucher, because I do believe you were the same person saying, you need to save him from himself. If he doesn't know what he's feeling and what he's thinking, you need to save Dak for himself. He doesn't need to play in the preseason. Guys don't need
That is correct.
I loved how you qualified
That is correct, and I am saving that for my second lap. I will get to you the distinction.
I love qualifiers because you know what? Sometimes you get an opportunity to circle back around even on a different show. Wow. I love the fact that Andy Reid has given me the opportunity to say, let's make football great again. Oh, make football great again. What does that mean?
Oh, goodness.
Why have we gotten so soft?
What does that mean?
Why have we become so soft? So now all of a sudden, you're going to tell me you're dealing with a residual injury from, or not even a residual, you're coming off of an injury from a prior year. You have a bump or a bruise, something that you have to address in the preseason. Don't touch them. Don't put them out there. Don't risk it. He could get hurt. There's so much riding on the season. You know, when Patrick Mahomes played at Texas Tech or Dak Prescott at Mississippi State, how many preseason games did they miss before they went into their main conference play? How many games did they miss? Probably none. Because you know what? That's not even something that you concern yourself with while you're in college.
You're right.
You just play the game. For some strange reason, we have become so inundated with saying, guys need to rest. Guys need to sit out.
You're right.
He could get hurt. We're to the point now.
You're right.
I know. We're to the point now where.
And not just in the NFL.
Right.
LeVar, not just in the NFL.
Well, I haven't seen
it. In the NBA has the same problem across sports.
Pro NBA, okay. Well, I'm going to go to hockey. I like hockey. I'm going to watch hockey because they still fight and they get their teeth knocked out and they play what's supposed to be what football is, which is full contact athletics. You know, I just think it's interesting that we sit here and we gasp. We see a quarterback. We saw Trevor Lawrence get hit in the game. And I can guarantee you, everybody that was watching that game was like, oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
Get him out of there.
Is he going to get hurt? Oh, get him out of the game. Get him out of there before he gets hurt. Like, I don't know when this turned into that, but I am so happy somebody other than myself that has way more credibility than I do in terms of if he's going to play a guy, especially Patrick Mahomes, that's coming off of a foot procedure in the preseason. God bless you, Andy Reid. God bless the Kansas City Chiefs. God bless America.
Oh, my God. LeVar 2024.
That's right.
I don't even know where to start. There's so much I disagree with. I have notes. I'm writing notes as you're talking. I'm not going to steal Rick's thunder on the second time around for Dak, so I'll let him pick you apart on that one.
Oh, pick me apart.
Nothing is an absolute, right? Nothing in life is an absolute. So when you say something, it doesn't mean that it necessarily applies to everyone and everything, which is a big problem when we have discussions these days. Like, oh, you said this. Like, yeah, okay, it doesn't apply to everything. Sean McVay is the one that you're looking for, LeVar. Sean McVay is the one who's really began this modern thing of not playing starters at all during the preseason. And that works for him. He's had success with that.
Well, kind of not.
And some guys are following that. Oh, they were in the Super Bowl pretty recently.
He's got no Super Bowls. as a
he
head
was
coach.
in a Super Bowl recently.
Okay.
There are teams that play all of their starters who are not in Super Bowls recently. There are many ways to do things, and some things work for some people and they don't for other people. I would say I have no problem with Andy Reid playing Patrick Mahomes in the preseason because Andy Reid most certainly knows more about football than I do. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid have a great relationship. And to Andy's points, they have an entirely new offensive line, which we all know is a rhythm unit. They have to be in unison. And who do they need to be in rhythm with? Patrick Mahomes. So there is actual value to them being in a game speed situation on the field together in preseason.
That's what
no,
you're going
Patrick
with.
Mahomes doesn't need to learn how to play quarterback. No, he doesn't need to get on the same page with his receivers who are mostly all coming back.
Going with.
Yes, I am, because that's literally what Andy Reid said. I'm not making it up. He said it. They haven't, and they do have a new offensive line. They need to be on the same page. But this is always what Andy Reid does, and this works for him. I don't think that you have to sit your starters in preseason. I don't think if a starter gets hurt in preseason that it necessarily meant he shouldn't be out there. Do I think that your starting running back needs to be playing 3 quarters in every preseason game? Probably not. But you're the coach and you know your players. And if they feel like they need to get out there and they want to get calluses, you have to protect some players from themselves while getting them ready for the regular season. And I think Andy Reid has a good balance with that. But that doesn't mean that a coach that doesn't play any of his starters is doing things the wrong way.
I just think they're soft.
LeVar,
go ahead,
you
Rick,
and I are not as far apart.
It's not about soft.
Rick.
There are multiple ways to do things. Some people think that stretching makes you soft. Some people think that wearing dresses make you soft. I wear a dress every day. Nobody's ever called me soft. So there are different ways to do things, and they can be more efficient.
Joy, you're a woman.
What does that mean?
So
you can wear a dress and not be called soft.
No, but my point is there are different ways to do things. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing it the wrong way. What the results are for your particular team can be reflective of that. And then I'll let Rick get into the Dak situation because I don't want to steal what I know he's going to say.
Rick.
I said it at the very beginning. One size does not fit all. And so what works for Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes shouldn't be used as the broad brush in terms of it does work for everybody or it doesn't work for everybody. And LeVar, you and I are not that far apart on this as you'd like to think that we are. No, I agree with you. The whole load management concept in sports bothers the hell out of me. This idea that we get better by resting, not actually practicing or playing, is anathema to what I grew up with in sports and what I genuinely believe. And I believe it has a lot to do with the amount of money that superstars are being paid, that owners are like, I don't want that guy getting hurt in practice. I want the people that are buying tickets and watching on TV to be able to see my guy in real games. So if it means protecting him for when the lights go on, then go ahead and do that. And the medical staffs have expanded. So now they have a much greater voice in whether guys are playing or not playing than the coaching staffs in some situations. But you putting Dak Prescott in the same category as Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady coming back from surgery is simply ignoring the fact that he didn't have a bump or a bruise. He strained a muscle in his throwing shoulder. And the idea that they'd continue to have him throw and risk the chance that he was not going to be ready for week 1 makes absolutely no sense. Ideally, he would have been practicing on that ankle. And I would believe that the Cowboys would have had him doing that. That's why he was out there throwing that first day and got injured. But ultimately, once he did, then it was, you know what? We need to figure this out, and we need to make sure that he's whole and ready to go 100% when it comes to week 1, game 1. And so that's the approach that they took with Dak. And I do believe there's also a difference in a Patrick Mahomes who may be a little more likely to throw the ball away or to escape a situation or not risk something compared to a Dak Prescott who's trying to come back and prove that he's worth a brand new contract and has everybody doubting that he can be the same quarterback that he was before. Nobody's doubting that about Patrick Mahomes. He knows he has nothing to prove. He's just looking to get in sync with his new pieces. So again, that's the difference between Dak Prescott and Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to compare the two. But LeVar, you are right. We have got soft when it comes to sports, the NFL in particular. I would say sports in general.
Some say soft, some say smart.
No,
If my career is going to last longer and I'm going to make more money and be successful for a longer amount of time because I manage my body the way that I see fits, some might call that smart. Some might call it soft. Generally, the people that are signing the check,
call it a little less
the people that are signing the check is the one that I am concerned about personally. That's just how I personally live my life. You can choose to do it your way.
Yes, we are but
I don't care about all that
priorities.
Tough guy stuff. Yes, priorities. Yes, that is my priority to make my career as long as possible and make the most amount of money while also putting myself in a position to win. That said, I agree with you as far as Dak Prescott
Which
goes.
one is more important?
Well, I can't win if I'm not on the field. I can't win if I'm not on the court. I can't contribute if I'm not healthy. And no one can tell me what my body feels. I can't tell you what you feel. You can't tell me what I feel. The difference, I agree with you, though, Rick, when it comes to Dak Prescott. It's different than Patrick Mahomes. It's different than Tom Brady. Dak Prescott is injured. It's not about him coming off of his ankle injury anymore. He is injured. He has a shoulder strain in his throwing arm. That's why he's not out there. It's not about if he, should play or shouldn't play in the preseason. I think he should have played in the preseason if he was healthy, but he's not. So it's not a comparable situation. As far as Andy Reid managing Patrick Mahomes and him playing in the preseason, if that's what he and Patrick Mahomes, both people that I trust and have shown that they are capable of being successful at what they do, if that's what they say works for them, cool. That doesn't make Sean McVay and the Rams soft or any of these other teams that are not playing their starters. It just means they're doing it a different way. At the end of the day, there's a lot of different ways to do things. Some people think they're soft. Some people think they're smart. The winners at the end determine who's right.
I won't join that argument because if I join it, then I might be looked at as joining that argument. I don't want to join the argument on smart and soft. I'm really not. All I'm going to say is smart and soft didn't matter in college. Smart and soft didn't matter in high school. Now all of a sudden,
those are different sports.
Now all of a sudden,
there's not getting checks for those.
Now all of a sudden, getting checks in the pros now means that smart and soft are two comparable things. I don't know. All I know is you had to do what you needed to do to get to the pros. And now all of a sudden, it's something different. Brooklyn in the house. Say it now. We'll tell you if the Nets, well, should they be title favorites? And we're going to do that next, right here on Speak for Yourself. Let's move on to the NBA. James Harden recently said, hey, at full strength, nobody can beat us. Well, according to Fox Bet Sportsbook, the Nets have the best title odds for next season. So, Rick, should the Nets be the title favorites?
No, they shouldn't be the title favorites. I understand why the odds makers might make them the title favorites, but no, they should not be the title favorites. The Milwaukee Bucks should be the title favorites. Not just because they're the defending champions, they're the reigning champions.
Oh my God.
But there's every reason to believe that the Milwaukee Bucks will actually be better next year.
Tell us,
everybody's
Rick.
sleeping on that. I get it. They're looking at the Brooklyn Nets. They went to 7 games with the eventual champions. They only had Kevin Durant left, and it was, as I hear over and over again, if he had size 16s rather than size 17s, then it would have been a different story. And once James Harden and Kyrie Irving are back, then they're the overwhelming favorite. I get why everybody's making that case, but I just don't agree with it. One, because I'm not convinced at this point still that we're going to see all three of those guys together at the finish line. And I still don't believe that when you have all three of them together, that defensively, when it comes down to the later rounds, when defense matters, that they're capable of playing the kind of defense that they need to play. But perhaps most important, it's the fact that we are looking at a completely different Giannis Antetokounmpo now than we did at any time last season. When we came into the season, we weren't talking about Giannis as arguably the best player in the league. Now that is very much a conversation between Giannis and Kevin Durant. 10 executives who voted 5 for each are proof positive of that. And so I look at Giannis, and yes, he improved over the course of the season to put himself in that conversation, and he still has room to grow. I look at the rest of the Bucks. They lost P.J. Tucker. P.J. Tucker, to me, was on the downhill slide and was really of minimal consequence in them winning the championship anyway. They had a very thin roster, basically played 7 guys, Pat Connaughton and Bobby Portis off the bench. They re-signed Bobby Portis. They added Rodney Hood. They added Grayson Allen. They have more depth than they had before. So they bring back this contingent that knows how to win it all, that has the confidence that we've gotten through everything, including closing out a series without Giannis Antetokounmpo. There is nothing that is going to dent their confidence or their belief that they understand what it takes to win a championship. That is one vital ingredient that the Brooklyn Nets do not have. For all of their talent, how do we play together in order to be the best team? And they have not demonstrated that they understand that yet, much less have had the ability to simply practice or search for that answer. So when I put it all together, I understand. I understand exactly why everybody out there, and perhaps a couple people on the show with me right now, are full on with the Brooklyn Nets. I get it.
Rabbit.
I understand.
Come on, Rabbit.
I'm just telling you, you're wrong.
Tell us all about it before we tell you about it. Come on, Rabbit.
The disrespect for P.J. Tucker, the disrespect.
I wrote that one down.
Lord.
P.J. Tucker down.
I like P.J. Tucker. P.J. Tucker's best days firmly behind him.
Downslide.
I would argue P.J. Tucker was
the catalyst.
A huge reason why they won that Nets series.
Against Brooklyn.
Massive reason why.
I'm glad you said
it was
that,
a huge
Jordan.
reason why KD was actually lighting them up.
Sometimes you got to step up to the bully and let him know he's not a bully.
Let's not make this about P.J. Tucker.
Okay, well,
P.J. Tucker doesn't deserve that much attention.
No, but I do think it is a loss, and you keep talking about defense, and P.J. Tucker is a good defender. He's one of the dogs on that team. I agree with you about Giannis. Giannis has leveled up. He erased all of the questions that anybody had about his game, and overall, I think that the Bucks should get a lot of respect as title contenders again this season, which they are. They have the third best odds. However, LeBron James and Anthony Davis are still in the Lakers, which is why they have the second best odds. However, Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving are still on the Brooklyn Nets, which is why they have the best odds to win the championship and why I do think that they should be favorites. Yes, you can dismiss the toe thing, Kevin Durant's shoe on the line, and what would we be talking about? I don't like playing woulda, coulda, shoulda. The way it happened is the way it happens. They won, they lost, we have a champion, the end. But that doesn't mean to disregard history, right? It did happen the way it happens, and they were there. It's a game of inches, so it matters that they were there without being healthy. They are back in the second year. There were a lot of questions about the Brooklyn Nets. How was all this going to work? Was Harden going to fit? What kind of leader was KD going to be? Well, if they're all healthy, I think they're going to answer them, and they're going to show why they should be the favorites. It's no disrespect to the Milwaukee Bucks, but listen, all those beautiful buildings in Vegas weren't built from winners, okay? So there's a reason why they are the favorites this year, and it's because they have Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving. And if we're going into the season assuming that all these teams are healthy, they should be the favorites. They have three superstars. They are the super team. And healthy, I don't know who really can beat them. The defense thing is great, right? We always talk about defense. And it showed throughout the postseason this year that having a couple good defenders can really make a difference. But at the end of the day, it's also who scores the most points. And Kevin Durant is the most unstoppable scorer in the NBA. You can argue about who's the best player, but KD is still that dude. So I'm going with the Brooklyn Nets as the favorites. I don't think it's outrageous. Now, the Bucks aren't far behind. They have the third best odds, so it's not like they're being disrespected. But I do think that the loss of P.J. Tucker is bigger than people are going to make it out to be. Clearly, you don't, Rick. But the Nets also signed Patty Mills. They re-signed Blake Griffin, which there were a lot of questions about how much value he brought. But I do think he answers some questions about what he's still capable of and brings to the Nets. So we'll see. But I think if they're all healthy, that's going to be a pretty unstoppable team. And when you look at super teams in their second year, they tend to level up.
I mean, we're looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as being a Super Bowl favorite for this year. And why? Because you're bringing back the same cast and characters that did it. When I look at this team, they're going to be better the second year out, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be. You know why? Because they got that first year in. They played 14 games together. 14. And in that 14 games, they only lost 3. Only lost 3. Now, here's the more interesting statistic that I think. When you look at their total record, they went 48-24 during the regular season. Rick, do you know where that ranked in the East? Second.
I would imagine that's at the top.
That was
second. Okay.
Second in the East. You know who that was ahead of? The Bucks. So it's interesting because 14 games, that's total.
We are talking about the regular season, right? We're not talking about the playoff. We're not talking
14,
about
we're talking
the more
14.
important part of the season. We're talking about the regular season.
Okay.
They're regular season champions.
What I'm not going to do, I'm not going to diminish the brilliance and the greatness of Giannis Antetokounmpo. I'm not going to do that. But what I am going to say is, was this a vital moment to the legacy of Giannis in terms of winning an NBA championship based off of a crippled team? And the answer would be yes. Steve Nash did a heck of a job trying to get them through when guys were not healthy. If they come back healthy, and we're basing this off of ifs and buts, right? If ifs were fifths, we're basing this off of ifs. If the Brooklyn Nets come back healthy, they have to be only second to the Lakers, as Joy mentioned, the favorites to win it. You had two of the most prolific scorers in the history of the game, and 3 overall of the most prolific scorers in the game today, right now. You only need 2 to be able to win. We're talking about you only need 2 in L.A. They were the favorites because you're talking about 2 prolific scorers. And some would argue that the 2 prolific scorers in L.A. are not even close to being as prolific as the 2 or 3 that are in Brooklyn. So to me, when you look at this team and you have those other pieces that are in play, that are there, how are you going to stop them night in and night out? And once you get to the playoffs, how are you going to stop a team that boasts 3 scorers that can score anywhere on the court at any given point in time? It doesn't happen that way. And for that, which is an argument that you and Broussard have used in shows past, so Rabbit, I'm interested in what your response will be because I took that argument directly from you and Broussard. So if you think that there is enough offense out there and it's with Giannis and Middleton and Drew Holiday, then God bless you. Go ahead. You can have that. You can have that argument ball right on back and dribble it down court and hit an air ball. We're going to rebound it. We're going to come back down court and we're going to score from anywhere on the court because we're prolific.
For whatever you think the Milwaukee Bucks are or aren't offensively, they were good enough offensively to win the championship. Not only just get past
That's correct.
Not just get past the Brooklyn Nets, but to get past the Atlanta Hawks and to get past the Phoenix Suns. So they have enough offense. And when you talk about the firepower of the Lakers or any other championship team, the Golden State Warriors, it wasn't just that they had that offensive firepower.
It's that they played
They were
defense.
Also really good defensive teams. They could lock you down at the other end. The Brooklyn Nets do not have that. They were ranked 24th in the league during the regular season. And no team ranked that low in the regular season has won a championship in the last 20 years. So defense does matter in the postseason. And
having your big guys
when you made the
healthy
comparison with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, why were you comparing the Buccaneers to the Brooklyn Nets?
Because
the Tampa Bay Buccaneers
players.
won a championship.
Yes.
The Milwaukee Bucks won a championship. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are coming back intact. The Milwaukee Bucks are actually coming back, I argue, better because they've added pieces. Yes, they lost one piece. The Brooklyn Nets lost Jeff Green. Also an important factor, and LaMarcus Aldridge had to retire before they ever got anywhere. So it's not as if the Brooklyn Nets are coming back totally intact either. LeVar, you're on the right track. You just got the wrong team. It's not the Brooklyn Nets that you're thinking of when you compare them to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
We will
revisit the Milwaukee Bucks. And brother, I know you took the wrong first step, but I'm welcoming you to the right side of this argument.
Goat talk.
Feel free to change up and come on over to the winning side. And we won't fill the coffers in Vegas with the bad bet and go with the Brooklyn Nets. We'll go where we get a better return and we'll take those Milwaukee Bucks.
I do like longer odds, Rick. You could talk me into it. It's a little bit more money on that one. So coming up, Tom Brady might never stop playing football, but we'll tell you how much longer he can play at a championship level next on Speak for Yourself.
That's why I said Tampa Bay, because we're about to talk about it.
Tom Brady won his 7th Super Bowl back in February, but it does not appear like an end is in sight for the QB who turned 40 4 earlier this month. Brady told Peter King, quote, "I'll know when the time's right. If I can't, if I'm not a championship-level quarterback, then I'm not going to play. If I'm a liability to the team, I mean, no way. But if I think I can win a championship, then I'll play." We're joined by NFL analyst Greg Jennings, but I'm going to go to you first, LeVar. So how much longer can Tom Brady play at a championship level?
For as long as he's able to be on a championship-level personnel team. I mean, let's just be clear here. Knowing when the time is right is what he said. That time will be if he's not able to be on a roster that boasts, think about this, 20 All-Pros, first and second team, 17 Pro Bowlers. That's during the course of all his Super Bowl runs. Let me tell you something. No person is an island, and Tom Brady is not a champion by himself. We could be clear on that. As long as Tom Brady has them All-Pros around him, you know, he has the number 1 rated receiving core this year. You do know that, right? He's got like top All-Pro linebackers on that defense, top All-Pro pass rushing defensive linemen, defensive ends. He's got some emerging defensive backs back there in the backfield. As long as you can lead men that play on a Pro Bowl, All-Pro caliber, it won't be time for some time now where Tom Brady feels the need to walk away from the game. Why walk away from all that talent when you have all that talent at your disposal? There's no reason to, and Tom Brady knows that. So until he gets to a point of where he has to decide if going to a team that has less talent than the teams he's played on is his option, his only option, that will probably be the only time where we see Tom Brady decide it's time to say goodbye.
I agree with you, LeVar. I'm not going to be as extensive. I'm just going to get straight to the point. When it comes to Tom Brady having this personnel, it's a matter of the general manager, ownership, and the head coach being in agreement that we're going to continue to support his skill sets, his needs. But I'm not going to sit here and act like Tom Brady hasn't been playing lights out. Like, he has been a part of a reason why, or reasons why, that these teams have had success. You look at last year, he didn't just scave by. Like, he wasn't one of the guys on the team that was just a part of it just for the ride. He was one of those pieces that if you unplugged, we don't know if this happens. And so when you look at that, yes, LeVar, he needs to be supported. That is one of the reasons why he was willing to walk away from New England, because they weren't willing to support what they had in Tom Brady. Look, we know physically he's going to hold up simply because he takes care of his body. I'm done trying to guess when he's going to be done. He's going to be done when he decides, like he said, I don't think I can compete at a high championship level any longer. And that will be when his mind tells him that and his body starts to speak that, as well as teams say, you know what, we can't give you everything, and players are no longer wanting to come aboard and be a part of what he can potentially provide.
Yeah, I think he's going to play at a championship level forever. Forever, ever. Forever, ever?
Hey.
I don't make a living predicting when Tom Brady's going to stop playing football. It's an exercise in futility at this point. If you know me, you know that I've been watching the Dolphins. I'm from Pittsburgh. I love the Steelers, but I'm watching the Dolphins my entire life. And I've been suffering at the hands of Tom Brady for a very long time. So I made a decision after the comeback win over Atlanta in the Super Bowl that I was no longer going to live that lifestyle. I was going to make a change for myself, for my mental and emotional health. I was going to finally submit to the greatness of Tom Brady. And I can tell you, it's a better lifestyle. My skin is better. I'm more hydrated. It's just better to not deal with the constant anxiety of what Tom Brady's going to do to my team. I already know. I've lived it, and I have come through on the other side. I have submitted. If you can't beat him, join him. I am not predicting when Tom Brady is going to retire. He keeps reinventing ways to get better. All of us are a lot of times undefeated. No, it's defeated, and Tom Brady did it. He did it. He has beat the final boss, all right? He is going to let us know when he wants to walk away. And honestly, I don't even think we're going to see a drop-off. At this point, I really think he's just going to play forever. Like, I'm not even being sarcastic. He's just going to continue playing until he feels like he doesn't want to do it anymore. It's not about, like, if a team's not going to take Tom Brady. We've seen teams take aged out quarterbacks for inexplicable reasons who don't look as good as Tom Brady at a younger age than Tom Brady's at now. So legitimately, I would not be surprised if Tom Brady played for like 5 more years. I wouldn't even be shocked. 5 years from now, if Tom Brady is like not looking as good as he does now, but still being kind of productive, I wouldn't be surprised. He's just going to play forever. Yeah. And that's just anyone who is still doubting the greatness of Tom Brady. I don't envy that lifestyle. It's not good for you. Give it up and just join. It's much easier over here.
As much as I admire Tom Brady, I do not want to see him on a football field at age 50. I don't.
I want to see it.
I want to see it.
I have no desire.
I want to see it.
I do want to see
that.
I'm rooting for that.
I do like the image of Joy being like the mother of all dragons, Khaleesi coming out of the fire after the baptism of Tom Brady and changing up. I appreciate that. Look, he's got he has at least one more year, and I think the thing that makes us wonder it could be endless is because he won last year with a torn MCL at 43 years old. Mm-hmm. With a torn MCL, he was still functional enough and still effective enough to lead a team or be part of a team that won a championship. And that's where, to all of your points, it does depend on Tampa Bay's ability to financially keep the kind of talented team that he has around him now. And I think he speaks to that he doesn't want to be a liability. Well, he's not a liability if you put enough talent around him. While I admire what he's doing, and I do believe that he was a positive in a much bigger way than, say, Peyton Manning was when he won that last Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos. Tom Brady is having more of an impact on these Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's not as if he's making everybody better in a concerted way, in the way that we saw him in his heyday with the Patriots. Patriots, you could take good players and he made them look great. Now he has great players around him that are making him look good. So it's really going to come down to the finances. Brady, as far as his health and his ability to stay upright, yeah, with the rules and with the way he takes care of his body, I think that can continue. The determination is going to be what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can do with the impact of a salary cap. Because as you guys well know, the more success you have, the more guys want to get paid, the harder it is to keep that crew together. And then you have to start making financial decisions that undermine the overall ability of your team. And I think that is when we're going to see that cutting edge of, can this team still be good enough for it to be a championship caliber team and be worth Tom Brady's while to stay in it?
But who's saying that he's going to stay with the Bucs? Like, we just automatically thought he was going to ride out into the sunset with New England and the Patriots.
He's going to do a LeBron James. He's just going to hop and skip and find the next great team.
No, yes. Possibly. For me, it is such a mental, it's so mental for Tom Brady. Like, the physical, we know physically he's going to be in shape. And LeVar, you know better than anybody else on this panel. Like, you've played at a high level. You were a top draft pick. You had high expectations. And at some point, mentally, when you start to check out, it is not that your physical ability has left you. Mentally, you just aren't there anymore. You can't meet that level of expectation mentally that you're able to even provide physically. Mm-hmm. Training camp. Like, there's a lot of variables. This team, this organization, they trust Tom Brady. They know he's going to prepare. And so when he does get in, he's not there for OTAs. He's not there for all of offseason, but he is putting in the work with his family and doing the little things, the fine details. So then when he does come back, he is all football 24/7. His family understands that. And that is why he is so different. That is why he can continue to play at a high level.
Tom Brady going to be showing up to training camp in a wheelchair, using his walker to get out to the field and still busting people's tails. Because that's Tom Brady. And listen, he's the only one that I'll sit here and accept the fact that doesn't have to play in the preseason. From one GOAT to maybe a future GOAT? Yeah, we're going to talk about the draft pick, Trevor Lawrence. Will he live up to the hype? We're going to discuss that next on Speak for Yourself. Urban Meyer said after last night's loss to the Jaguars, wait, they didn't lose to the Jaguars, they lost. The Jaguars' offense is not balanced. I felt like Ron Burgundy right there. They're not balanced right now. Trevor Lawrence started in his second preseason game. And, well, he has not thrown an interception yet, but he has also not thrown a touchdown pass. So from Ron Burgundy to Greg, when we go back to Joy, let's talk about Trevor Lawrence living up to the hype. Will he live up to the hype? Let's start with you, Greg.
This is tough. I hate questions like this because we haven't seen anything that suggests that Trevor Lawrence is going to live up to the hype this year. And it shouldn't be anything that suggests. Like, it's hard to be as touted, as highly recruited in high school and sought after even as a collegiate player, and then enter into the National Football League. You obviously aren't going to be in a great situation. He has a ways to go, and it's shown. Like, there are some great things. We're going to see flashes. But as far as living up to the hype, and that, I don't think he is able to do that coming out the gate. Now, eventually, will he? Possibly. That's to be seen. But right now, where it stands with the personnel, with everything that he has as a supporting cast right now to date, no, he can't live up to that Trevor Lawrence hype of savior. And no, neither should he, because it is a team sport. Like, you can't come into the National Football League as a quarterback. I don't care how great you are, if you don't have the supporting cast around you and just elevate that team and save that franchise. Eventually, can he get there? Yes, possibly. We will see. But right now, no, it's too much hype. It's too hard to do that.
He'll live up to the hype, but temporarily, definitely not. But that shouldn't be shocking to anybody, because the reason he's in Jacksonville is because they're terrible. That's how they got the number one overall pick in the first place. So what are we talking about here? All this overreaction about, like, is he going to live up to the hype? He's not the quarterback. I don't agree with not naming him the quarterback, first of all. I am adamantly against the idea that there is a quarterback competition between Gardner Minshew and Trevor Lawrence, a player that we were talking about after his freshman year as possibly being able to play in the NFL. Now, was that overblown? Sure. But there's very few prospects that we talk about in college in that vein, and he is one of them. Is he capable of overcoming the dysfunction in Jacksonville? I believe he is. Urban is a proven culture maker, changer. He is a molder of organizations and institutions. So, yes, do I think that the combination of Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence have the best chance to overcome the traditional dysfunction of the Jacksonville Jaguars? Yes, I do, because he is that kind of prospect. Now, does that mean he's going to do it on his own? No. He's going to need a team around him, just like everyone else in the league does. But I do think he is so good that not this year, because they're not good this year, as we're seeing in the preseason when we look at the roster. Now Travis Etienne is out. They have lots of injuries and lots of issues, and they're rebuilding, and they are starting from absolute scratch, on top of the fact that Urban Meyer has never coached in the NFL before. So there is a learning curve for everyone here. It's going to take a little bit of time. This is a long play in Jacksonville, but I think, we're getting a little crazy with overreacting to the situation. The reason he is in Jacksonville is because they're terrible. That's why he's there. So you got to give him a little bit of grace here. And Urban, too. This is a complete and utter rebuild.
Yeah, this is a complicated one, because you want to believe in the talent of Trevor Lawrence and believe that he's going to prove out and be every bit as good as you'd expect him to be coming out with the rating and with the background, the success that he's had in college. But I got to admit, I do have concerns. Will he speed up? How much will he speed up? It just seems as though, and Greg, you're a receiver, so I don't know how much you've watched him. It just doesn't seem like he's as ahead, as quick to his reads, as far ahead as somebody who is supposed to be like that can't miss prospect when you're seeing him, even if he's playing with a team that isn't quite as good as they need to be. We've looked at Andrew Luck and said, okay, you can see it, like, whoa, it jumps out at you. You see certain guys. Peyton Manning struggled as a rookie in this league, but you could see it. I don't want to seem like I'm downing on Trevor Lawrence, but when you were watching him, did it look like he was slow to get into his reads and slow? He just looked like he was slow, like he was behind. Am I off on that?
No, I don't think you're wrong. I think everything is a little fast right now for Trevor Lawrence. If you look at small instances before the half, the play clock going down and them having to use a timeout, like different things that quarterbacks have to be aware of pre-snap. I think everything is just a little sped up for Trevor Lawrence right now, but I think he'll be okay. Again, this is year one. This is his first training camp. This is his first year of live action, first opportunity. Like, it's different than training camp. It's different than going against the same helmets every single day. They're not going to hit you. These guys are coming to hit you, and you got to respond. You got to react.
Yeah, contrary to popular belief, I don't like or enjoy predicting the demise of anyone or anything. Yes, the Brooklyn Nets are overrated and the Lakers are too old, but I digress. I don't want to see Trevor Lawrence fail. I'd much rather see him succeed. But if you're asking me, is he going to live up to the hype? History tells me no, he's not going to live up to the hype. If I just look at the quarterbacks that have been taken number one over the last 10 years, we can go down the list starting in 2010 with Sam Bradford. Did he live up to the hype? Nope. No, he didn't. Cam Newton? Yeah, you know what? I could say that. Andrew Luck? I don't think so. We had him as a Hall of Famer coming into the league. He was good, but
Andrew Luck lived up to the hype. I disagree with you on that one.
Jameis Winston, Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield. And I'm going to stop there because I think the jury's still out on Kyler Murray and obviously Joe Burrow. But among those, you would say Cam Newton definitively, and we can debate Andrew Luck. But that's two out of what?
Definitely
7?
We can debate him.
So,
I'm with you on
all right,
that, G.
So, again, I'll give you that. I'll give you that Luck lived up to it. I don't know that anybody expected his career to be shortened the way that it is. And I'm not saying individually. I think that the big scope on Luck is all that he was going to achieve.
He transformed.
But let's put him in the category. He and Cam Newton are the two that were successful. That's 2 out of 7, 8 quarterbacks. So taken number one. And that's just in the last 10 years. I could give you the same percentages for the ones taken from 2000 to 2009. So the odds are, simply in part because of what Joy mentioned, like he's with a bad team. He's with a bad organization. That's where number one picks generally go. Are you good enough to elevate them? Are they good enough to transform that franchise around you as you get better? That's always a very steep climb, and it does not happen more often than it does. So it's not really even on Trevor Lawrence. It's can his team and his coach, a first-time NFL coach, can they all elevate themselves in order for him to reach his full potential? We'll have to wait and see. But ultimately, if I'm a betting man, I would say no, probably not going to happen.
Well, it's interesting because Coach Schottenheimer, Brian, was the OC in Seattle this past season. He ends up having to move on because of differences of philosophy in terms of the success for Russell Wilson. They wanted to revamp how they were going to do their offense in Seattle. I think that's interesting. I do a show with TJ and Plexico, TJ Hushman's Eye, Plexico Burst, and they were talking about how it could be a bad decision having Brian Schottenheimer be the one that has to develop Trevor Lawrence. I think it's going to come down to the development process of Trevor Lawrence. Is Urban Meyer and Brian Schottenheimer going to be able to make Trevor Lawrence a believer into being what he is destined to be, which is a franchise quarterback playing at a high level? I think that remains to be seen, but I'm not going to count him out. I'm not going to bet against him. I think Urban Meyer has been a winner, and sometimes you just got to know that, well, being a winner breeds winners. So maybe it's just as simple as that. Maybe it isn't. Odds are stacked against him, but I still think that he's someone that could end up being a guy in this league.
I don't think anybody's rooting for the demise of Trevor Lawrence. We just give our predictions. This is what we're paid to be up here to do, is talk about it. Nobody wants anybody to be bad. Good football is better for everybody, so everyone's rooting for him. But as far as the point of the number one overall picks, Jared Goff played in a Super Bowl. Cam Newton was a league MVP, played in a Super Bowl. Andrew Luck was great. His career was cut short because they couldn't put the offensive line around him, but he was certainly successful and worth the number one overall pick. As you said, jury's still out on Kyler Murray, who I think is a star, and Joe Burrow, who I also think is a star, but went to a bad team with a bad offensive line. So it's going to come down to the development. You're right about that, LeVar, and what they can put around him. But we haven't gotten through the preseason yet, so this feels a little bit overreactionary to me. I still think he's going to be okay. We're going to have to give it a little time. Coming up, the Rams have had major health issues at running back. We'll tell you what this means for Sean McVay's squad next on Speak for Yourself. Let's stay right here in LA, where the Rams have had some issues in their backfield. Darrell Henderson has a mild thumb sprain, but it's not expected to keep him out of the regular season opener. This news follows starting running back Cam Akers tearing his Achilles a few weeks ago and being lost for the season. So, Rick, what does this mean for the Rams?
Not a lot. The expectation of a great season for the Rams is dependent on their defense, on the arrival of Matt Stafford, and the creativity of Sean McVay. So with their running back situation, it's going to be running back by committee. It sort of was going to be that anyway, and this means it's going to require a little more creativity when it comes to Sean McVay. But beyond that, I don't see this as being a significant shift in what we're anticipating that the Rams are going to be. The real question is, can Matt Stafford be the answer that they were looking for ultimately, that they did not feel that they had with Jared Goff, which is why, as a number one pick, he was not living up to the hype. But I digress in going back to the last segment. So I look at exactly what they are and what they expect to be. And while the running back situation is a concern, and no doubt LeVar is feeling like it's just a bump or a bruise, what the hell, Henderson should be out there practicing, I'm going to say that it really is not a big deal whether he is practicing this week or not, and it'll be available for week 1.
I saw what you did there, Rick. So he shouldn't play.
Like Rick.
Because it was an injury. He's not hurt. He's injured.
Just
I love that you
thumb.
enjoy
He's got 9
all
other
on the
fingers.
same
What the
page
hell?
and cahoots colluding against me. It's fine. I can handle it. I got strong shoulders, all right? Not as strong as Greg Jennings, but they're pretty good. So here's the thing. It is a concern because not having the proper backfield, not having proper pieces up front, questions with the center's position, question with your line in general in some spots, could be potentially crippling to this offense. Now, you bring in Stafford for his arm and his ability to be able to deliver downfield and deliver to the receivers. He's got some pretty good receivers. But you got to keep in mind the McVay offense is that same type of offense that Shanahan runs in San Francisco, which is you're running zone plays. Those zone plays create spacing and balance in your offense. So, in fact, while we are in such a very heavy pass league, you still have to create the balance of the run. You can't diminish or minimize the importance of having a running back, even if by committee, the importance of their success out of the backfield. If you're able to make, Stafford one-dimensional in what it is that he's bringing to the table, then you are putting tremendous pressure on this Rams defense to be able to keep the point totals low in the games that they're playing in. And to think that you can do that all season long in the NFC West, it's not realistic to believe in that. It's too tough of a division to just say that, it's a small speed bump. It's not a real big situation. The teams are too good. You're talking about the team that the San Francisco 49ers will have based off of the health. You're talking about things seem to be getting a little bit better in Seattle. And, well, you just added A.J. Green with DeAndre Hopkins. You got Kenyon Drake. You got some guys, and we just talked about Kyler Murray could possibly be a guy that steps into his own. I think this is a big year for Kingsbury and Kyler in Arizona. So, to me, I do think that this could be a big deal for them, and it could actually be the difference in them being able to be more of a contending team for the division and how that may play out in their attempt and their opportunities to make the playoffs.
I think this is a huge deal. You guys mentioned all the reasons why. LeVar, I agree with you. This is the toughest division in football, which is why I'm going with the Seahawks in this division, because they're coming in the most concrete into the regular season with the least questions about the team. They know what's going on. They don't have these injuries in big spots. A big question with Matthew Stafford in Detroit was what? His lack of run support. Over the course of his 12-year career in Detroit, they never ranked in the top half of the league in rushing. We know what his career was in Detroit, right? Over the course of his 12-year tenure there, he had one player rush for over 1,000 yards. That was Reggie Bush in 2013. Matthew Stafford needs a running game. And this offense, despite the fact that everybody thinks it's very finesse because Sean McVay is the whiz kid, it does go through the running game. As you mentioned, LeVar, remember what happened with the Rams when Todd Gurley wasn't 100%?
They struggled.
And things start to kind of fall apart. The defense is good until you have them out there on the field more than they need to be. So this is absolutely...
And you have to rely on Jared Goff.
Yes, who did get them to a Super Bowl. But I see your point. Matthew Stafford did not play in a Super Bowl. This is his first year in L.A. with great expectations because Jared Goff was a number 1 overall pick that they shipped to Detroit. So let's keep all this stuff in mind. I think not having a running game, despite the fact that we kind of devalue running backs and, it's just running back by committee and all that stuff, it is very troubling. The Cam Akers injury was troubling enough for me to give the division to the Seahawks, to be honest with you. So this is added to it. They are thin at this position, and it's very concerning to me if you're the Rams, and it should be concerning to Matthew Stafford as well if you look at the history of his career. Coming up, Andy Dalton is the Bears starter right now, but we'll tell you if Justin Fields should get the nod next on Speak for Yourself.
Nagy confirmed earlier today that Andy Dalton will start week 1 for the Bears. But the buzz for Justin Fields is still there. And Nagy said the rookie will start in Chicago's preseason finale and play about 2 quarters. So, Joy, let's start with you. Should Justin Fields be the starter for the Chicago Bears?
Yes, Justin Fields is the future of the Chicago Bears. I understand you told Andy Dalton that he was going to be the starter, and perhaps I'm being a little heartless, but this is why I get things in writing first. He's not the starter. He's not the future of this organization. And if Andy Dalton goes out there and he trips, as soon as he fails, as soon as he starts to slip, that fan base and that city is going to turn on them very quickly. But I don't actually lay this at the feet of Matt Nagy or the GM. I lay this at the feet of the ownership, because when you have a GM and a coach that are coaching for their jobs, that are on expiring contracts, they're going to make decisions that are best for them to keep their jobs. And Andy Dalton probably is ahead of Justin Fields right now. But Justin Fields would benefit from game experience. He needs to start growing and developing. We need to see what we have in him, right? So that when you hit year 3 and 4 and you still have him on that rookie contract, you can bring in all those pieces. Like, that's the formula for having a rookie quarterback on his rookie contract. It's done that with Baker Mayfield. They did it with Jared Goff, which is why they got to a Super Bowl. Did it with Patrick Mahomes. You're seeing this over and over and over again, this formula. So you need to, in my opinion, if you have someone who knows the future, which we're seeing in Justin Fields, you need to get him on the field as soon as possible. But Matt Nagy and the GM are coaching for their jobs. So they're going to make a decision that's best to win games right now and not necessarily the best decision for the future of the organization for 2 or 3 years from now, because they might not be there then. And I don't blame them. That's human nature. But that's how I look at this situation. Andy Dalton is more experienced. He's going to win games earlier or put them in a better position earlier to win games, which will buy some grace for the head coach and the GM in this situation.
They don't know how good this team is going to be. So bringing in a guy in free agency before you knew you were going to get Justin Fields was the wise and prudent move. You end up getting Justin Fields, but you do stay the course because you just paid that man a $10 million salary for his first year and only year on this contract. So what you do is you make it a win situation. You play Andy Dalton, and it's a win-win. If Andy Dalton works out, then you got your value and you bought time for Justin Fields to develop. If Andy Dalton fails and falters, then you toss him and you you disperse him and throw him under the bus and you bring Justin Fields in. If Justin Fields plays this cool and doesn't, tell the fans to stop booing and cheering for him to come in and doesn't turn himself off to being endeared by the fans, Justin Fields turns out to be a good guy in the situation. And even if they struggle once they bring him in, he still has more runway, Rick, in his opportunity to help turn around this organization moving forward.
LeVar, I knew at some point that you and I would agree, and here we are. Because I feel like I'm Matt Nagy's spirit animal.
I take it all back. All right.
Yeah, you can't. Too late. Look, Justin Fields is the future of this. And honestly, Joy, I feel as if they are doing the opposite. If it was a matter of just coaching for their jobs, they break Justin Fields out of the box right away and satisfy the fan base and everybody who is screaming for Justin Fields to be there. But they're not doing that because they're thinking of Justin Fields and his development. This is not the 49ers, because this is not a good Bears team. It's a bad Bears team with a bad offensive line. I don't want to subject Justin Fields to that at this point. It worked for developing Patrick Mahomes. This idea that you got to get guys on the field as soon as possible if they have the potential, I don't know why we've become married to that. I think it is situational. It goes back to that not all sizes are the same. Not everything fits the same way. And I think in this case, as good as I believe Justin Fields is going to be, that they're taking the prudent approach because you want to maximize ultimately what Justin is going to be, and starting out with a bad Bears team is not the way to do that.
They're not that bad. I agree with the offensive line, but they have some stars. They're good on defense.
They got
but it starts there.
They got some pieces.
You guys were just telling me how the running game is affected because the Rams don't have a good offensive line, or they have questions there. And now that's an issue. And now with the Bears, it's not that big of a deal.
I agree with you, Rick.
Super Bowl.
I just don't know how good they're going to be. But I do agree with you. I hate to say it.
Look, it's okay. You guys can team up against me once.
You don't have to hate to say it, LeVar.